Hi, everybody, and welcome to the G Plus Lunch Bunch. You know, it's been a couple of weeks. We were on hiatus for a couple of weeks, and I have to tell you, I really missed the gang. So it's really happy. I'm really happy to be here today. Before we start, I just wanted to say a couple of words about the Lunch Bunch table and what it is and what it is not. And the Lunch Bunch show is not a webinar. You know, we're a lunch table that we're a group of friends and peers gather who work in the digital space, whether it's marketing or business people. And you know, it's not a podium. We're not here to pontificate. We're here to participate. So that's why I appreciate your participation when you leave comments and questions on the event page. So today we have a great topic. We're going to be talking about being found, but not only being found, because everybody wants to be found. That's why there's a whole huge SEO industry, but being found by the people that you want to find you. So first of all, how do we identify those people, and then how do we get them to follow us once they find us? So I'm going to open up that topic and maybe just get some general ideas about that at the very beginning with our Lunch Bunch crew. And I'm going to ask that they introduce. I'm going to go down the film strip and ask that they give a very short introduction so you know who they are. So we're going to start, as usual, with Jess.
Oh, good morning, good afternoon, good day, wherever you happen to be right now. I'm Jess Duell, and I am founder and owner of Red Direction, where we create small, purposeful actions that create big, lasting impacts. And did you want me to say anything else, or are we still saying hello?
We're just saying hello, so I'm going to send you over to David. David, you'll have to unmute yourself, unless you want to do mime.
Hello. I guess I'm unmuted now. My name is David Leopold. The brand that I have built is Small Biz David, and I'm all about entrepreneurship and small business information.
Thanks so much, David. And David, again, is a founding table sitter at the Lunch Bunch. So, Randy.
Hello. Welcome back, Ray. We missed you. I'm Randy Bowden. I'm a non-participating marketer. How about that?
I don't agree, Randy. I think you pontificate sometimes.
Okay, Scotty, how are you today?
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, evening, whatever time you happen to be in the Scott treatment from Seattle, Washington, where it's cloudy. I don't know if it's raining or not, and I revive, repurpose, and repair Hangouts on Air.
I missed our weekly weather forecast from Scotty.
Yeah, it is cloudy.
I always know what's happening in the Seattle.
And the ever-present cat in the background.
Good morning, Vivek, or good afternoon, I should say.
Namaste.
Thanks. Yeah, and that's
it's
great.
Vivek.
On my machine anyway, you froze there for an instant. That was very profound.
It's
Okay, so
Vivek. And
go ahead.
I aim to simplify things. That's my aim.
That's a good goal, because that's on my list. So today we're going to jump to the topic, and the first question or point I want to make, and again, this is a lunch table. It's like when friends get around and we chat, and sometimes they go in different directions. But I'm going to try to keep it on track, and we're going to talk about not only being found and identifying who wants to find us, but how do we get them to follow us once they do? Who wants to grab that first? Okay, so let me clarify that.
I'll say something. You know, because there was dead space, I always try to wait, not jump in, but I'll say something. And this is just to get the conversation going. That to answer your question in a simple form is to be consistent. You just have to be consistent in whatever you're doing to engage whoever that is you're trying to engage with. In other words, if you're participating on a social platform, if you're blogging or whatever, you can't just do those things sporadically. People lose, in today's times, people lose interest, customers lose interest, and to start the conversation off in another vein, knowing who your customer is and where they are. I mean, that's how you get found. You got to know where they are so you can go to them.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I have to agree, because I mean, people have to sort of count on you being there once they found you and once they found your content. Somebody want to add that? Because the question I want to ask you then is that consistency with what? In what way? Consistent blogging, consistent appearance on social platforms, on Twitter, on...
How about a path to follow? Wherever you happen to be, as long as there's, I don't know if you want to call it breadcrumbs or the trail that, you follow through the forest so you don't get lost and find your way back, whatever you want to call them. The idea being that wherever you happen to be, as long as you're there consistently, meaning I actually think showing up is more important than what's posted, to let people know what that path is back to where they can get the information they want when they want it.
Okay, now just break this down into two parts then. First of all, how do we identify, because we all agree, and we've had shows about this, about not casting a huge net out there, about actually being very focused on who you're targeting your content to. How do we do that, for one thing? Let's start with that. How do we find that ideal market? I'm not sure if you're waving because you're scared, Jess, or are you waving for attention?
I'm totally scared and attention at the same time. Okay. I'll step right into that. Well, and that's where I am a big proponent of, those target audience. Whatever research we do, it's great. If we have customers, that's great, but they might not be our ideal customers, or they might not be representative of our group as a whole. And that's where I am a really big fan of character customer profiles. I'm a big fan of making up people that represent every single aspect of a target market in an individual, so that I can have a role-playing, and this is, yes, I do have a 3-year-old, but this is actually valuable in business as adults too. Have this role-playing dialogue. What can I do for you? How will you respond to this? What do you think about that? And that's how I write content, so that when I'm in the places that those people are, I know I'm going to get some responses. And if I don't, or based on the responses I get, I know how to tweak my profile so that when I'm creating something, I'm looking at my audience and I know that I'm going to be serving them when it actually reaches them in a published form.
That's a great point, and I think that's a takeaway, because I think that you've kind of almost answered both sides of that question. First of all, who they are, who you want to reach, but also how do they find you? And as you mentioned, you said actually being in the space where they're at. So anybody want to elaborate on that?
It's important to know your brand, to know yourself. And Christopher's made a comment. I think Christopher identifies his brand very well.
I'm going to bring that up. Okay. Well, that is consistency.
He understands it, though. But see, he knows that. But that's tongue in cheek. It's important to understand your brand and to jump over on what Jess was talking about. Yeah, you got to identify those markets, but the casting the big net out. I work a lot on referrals, and somebody might not need my work, but they might follow me in some platform, maybe my blog or something like that, and there's somewhere and a conversation starts, and there is a opportunity for them to make a referral of me. And you can't discount that, and that's what happens in the digital space a lot. If you start profiling your customers and you start asking and finding out how did you find me, you might be surprised at how sometimes that those dots get connected. So it's important. That goes back to my opening about being consistent. If you're consistent, you're always there. So I think in your opening monologue you talked about big brands always rising to the top of social media. I think if you're going to fight the Google, the SEO dragon as a little guy, you're never going to win it unless you're just keep your head down, keep working hard, and doing a consistent job at it.
I'm going to ask Vivek. Vivek, could you bring up Jerry's comment, because I think he touches upon a very important element here. Yeah, make me laugh, make me cry, and make me think. I will be back. And I think that's why I think that's important is that I think he's saying you have to reach people on an emotional level. You have to resonate. We just can't, again, pontificate about the do's or the best practices and the theories and the whys of social media or marketing or business. But you have to tell stories, and and to tell stories, you have to reach people through through those things that causes them to connect, and people connect through emotion. So I think that's a great point he makes.
But that's a difficult thing for some brands to do. Small brands can do exactly that. But there again, it depends on, like what Jess was saying. You got to identify what your market is and what they're doing for. Do I want a bunch of people to just come back and read my blog and just never engage with me or something? Sure, because it goes back to what I said about a referral or a recommendation or something like that. But it's very easy for a small operation to create content that can engage their potential customers or their clients out in the field. It's very easy to do that. But in doing that, you can never lose sight of your brand. It has to be in the encapsulation of your brand doing it.
Okay.
Agreed.
So, one of the interesting things Randy was commenting on, and it dovetails with something I was thinking about, was that it was big brands. Well, I'll just put it this way: big brands have word of mouth, and the small guys might have word of mouth. But if it's small guys, it's called referrals. And when you think about it, the big brand is just too big for a lot of people to refer. You don't refer people to Safeway. You either have word of mouth. And so your question, Ray, is how do you reach out and how do people find you? You do, if you're a small guy, you just do it one person at a time, and it is through referrals. And how many referrals as an entrepreneur or a small business person do you need? You only need 3 or 4 or 8, I don't know how many, but you only need a finite number. So that makes it very, very manageable. And I imagine you can, if you know who that referral target is, target your message to the person who is the transmitter and motivate that person to motivate that referral to you. However that can be done.
If you're very small, I agree, Scotty. I mean, and that goes back to what I think Randy said earlier. I mean, just pick up the phone, or go to those networking events in your location. If you're a bigger brand, say, and I'm not talking huge, humongous like Google or Apple. I'm talking about a big brand, still small business, from 50 to 100, 500 people. That's more difficult to do. So so how do you do that? How do you get your brand? And again, I have this thing in my head, this brand / profile kind of conflict going on, because we want to lead and give our brands a personality. At least that's what we say. But then, how do you make that connection, or how do your followers, how does your market make that connection between you and your brand?
I think, and there's a lot of good comments on the page, on the events page, and the humor and the sincereness of the brand, being helpful. All those things are paramount to engaging and keeping customers coming back to you, or fans, or whatever way you want to classify them. There's one comment on there about people tend to get too personal, or it turns them off and they get personal. I do see that a lot. I mean, sorry, I'm going to ask Vivek if you can bring that up while you're talking, Randy. Yeah, and I don't know that maybe they're thinking about an individual on a Facebook account talking about their crying baby, or their new 3 little puppy dogs they take on a walk every day or something like that. But you got to keep those personal profiles somewhat separated from your business account, and keep those business accounts engaged in a business format. So one that comes to mind to me that excels at it is Lowe's, the big box Lowe's. They're extremely active on Vine. They're extremely active on Instagram, but the way they operate on those various platforms is different, and it fits the audience on each one of those platforms. They do these little short vignette helpful videos on Vine, and it's humorous. It's very humorous, but it's like a quick tip of how do you do something, So it's understanding that audience and using humor and using the help, a combination of all those together.
And it's understanding the platform, I believe, Randy. as well. I mean, those kind of things, you know, that Kim was referring to, you see it a lot on Facebook. And I have a real, you know, I really have a challenge with Facebook because more and more of my peers are followed me. And now I always, every time I post something, I think of, wow, man, I have to figure out who's going to see this. And then do the whole Facebook thing, you know, trying to find the friends and the icon thing, which is very small, I think intentionally. But on Google Plus is a bit different. I mean, there's some things that I post that are personal, but they're not intimate. There's a difference between intimacy and personal. You know, personal, like my beach scene, you know, last week in Maine, for instance, that's personal, but people can relate to that, or they can say, yeah, I vacation there, or I love the beach. Those things we have in common, and I think that makes a connection. Intimate would be.
Yeah, but you do realize that a lot of people live on these platforms. I mean, it's like and back to the telephone, go to the networking things. I think a lot of people rely on the digital space to bring their clients in today, and they're frustrated. Maybe they're not getting that top search or something like that because they've lost the ability to use those old tactics that still work.
I have a question.
Yes, Jess.
I totally agree with you, Randy, that those tactics are very, very important. And I'm going back to this whole character customer thing, and we're talking about brands, and we're talking about the power of our brand and our brand needing to actually have a business. And I don't do this, but now I'm really intrigued. What if we gave our brand a face when we're working in our place? Not a public face, not like, I mean, if this was Red Direction right here, what would I talk to Red Direction about? What would Red Direction say from me to Ray, or from me to Randy, or from Red Direction to Scott, and Red Direction to David? What is that what are the human characteristics of that brand, and does that come through in what we're talking about? Because if we're talking about the need to have personality and to be delightful and to be intriguing and maybe even a little mysterious and fun all at the same time, whatever those words are for us, if it doesn't have a face, if it doesn't have a person, you know, an actual person behind it, how do we know we're doing a good job? And would we want to talk to our own brand in that sense? And maybe there might be something to that. How do we personify our brand internally, not externally to the world, internally, so that when our brand speaks, it speaks as a human, since people buy from people.
It's a reverse persona, right?
A variation of a persona, yeah.
Great.
There's a good comment. There's a good comment. Excuse me, just a minute, Dave. There's a good comment in there on what just said about big brands and relating. There's a comment about Amazon. Christopher put that in there about Amazon. If you can bring that up, that you know they rely. Think about what Amazon relies on, and what everybody that puts something on Amazon, they rely on reviews. Reviews are done by Jess. They're done by Randy. They're done by Ray, because we like to buy from people that we know or people we might trust, you know. So they and if you've ever left a review on Amazon, you know they vet that thing pretty good. So that's kind of a good comment that I read there.
Well, he also mentions as well, and sorry, I was having a problem finding that comment, because he also, Christopher, the ever wise Christopher, also brings up another good point in terms of if you are a smaller brand, being personal kind of cuts through the consumer noise, as he hashtags it. So it's one way to differentiate yourself. But to what extent do we do that? You know, it's as you know, Mark Traphagen wrote an article. I'm not sure if I referred to it in the green room. I don't think I referred to it on the show in SearchMetrics, that basically said, you know, in search results, usually, you know, the big brands or the most recognized brands get the top two places. After that, they drop off considerably. And he says because of that, it's imperative that we have basically our clients talk about us. And then talk about us as brands, so that Google recognizes that we're brands, and so that maybe we can move up. Now, I don't know if that's scalable, you know, to a consultancy or a small boutique agency, whether you have to be a big brand to grab that kind of attention. I don't think so. I think the important thing in what semantic search and what Google Plus has done is they give us top search results based on our following and who's following us and who's doing that search. And I think that's important differentiation to make.
But if you're
I have a question on that.
Yes, Vivek?
Yeah, you mentioned the top two spots and the rest are drop off and all that. But what effect does the personalization of search results have?
Well, I think that's what the point I was making was that if you're doing a totally objective search and you're looking for a brand through a keyword or wherever else, you're going to have these brands are going to have the advantage. The ones who have a huge reputation, the brands that Google knows will give you the best results. However,
but
on personalized search, that's different. It depends on if I'm in your network or not. For instance, if you're looking for a social strategist, if I'm in your network, there's chances that I'll show up on your first page.
Yeah, you're talking about this is what always. I mean, we're marketers and we think about it, and our conversations seem to be focused on marketers or individual people. But so I'm sitting outside of Athens, Georgia, and I need a dentist, right? I go to Google and I say dentist in Athens, Georgia, right? And it's going to pop up the dentists that are relevant and close to me in that geographical area. I don't just put dentist in there. I mean, you got to refine the search. And so I think we don't give enough credit to the people out there, and we're worried about we search ourselves and we've got to be up here rank, or we're looking at some ranking. I think the average person out there, if they're looking for the low, where is the Lowe's in this community? Put it in there, and it'll tell them, it'll drive them there. So I don't worry about that kind of stuff that much myself.
But Lowe's is an established brand, Randy, and people are searching for Lowe's. The point is, what if you're a brand that people don't even know you exist? What if, and they're looking for a keyword like I need an extension cord, and I'm in Athens, Georgia. What's the chances of your little hardware store coming up in search results?
Oh, well, actually, it depends on what kind of search results. I love the idea of the map, and if we've got a Google page for our small business that sells extension cords, and we've put our hours and we've put the type of inventory we have, Google's going to take care of some of that for us, because we've gone through the steps to give Google information to enhance their search results for people who are searching for those types of things in that area at that time. So Google is actually doing a lot to help us as small businesses too.
Yeah, right. I can type in hardware stores in my community, which is a community, right? I can type in that and put the name of the community I live in, and it'll pop up 2 hardware stores that I've got. You know what's in there? There's a phone number. I can pick them up. Hey, you got extension cords? Sure. Yeah, I can go get that. I mean, that's what if you're now that's if I'm wanting to support my local hardware store, right? But if I really want to get an extension cord, I'm going to go to Walmart, because they're extremely less costly at the Walmart than they are the guy that's got to buy 5 at a time. So, I mean, but I understand what you're saying. I mean, I don't think I would worry about it as a small business.
So is there any advantage, Randy, then to that owner of that boutique standalone hardware store to get his profile out there, to get people to know who he is? Do you think that makes any difference?
I think it's paramount to have a website, or at least some semblance of a website, and have some presence. I'm not saying that local hardware store needs to be on Facebook or Twitter or anything like that, but they need to have some kind of. It could be as simple as a single-page website. Sure, it needs some kind of presence. They don't need to be content generators. I mean, what's the benefit? They're relying on drive-by traffic anyway. The people in the community, they're not reaching to the next county over to get people to come in here. Although that happens because of people drive by in traffic. So I mean, we as marketers are just pushing this stuff that you have to be in this digital space, and every bit. It doesn't necessarily make sense to me as a small business operator. Personally, my social proof does something that gives me a recognized authority in what I do. So yeah, I'm in this space, I'm in that space. My local hardware store, I would say you're wasting your time doing all that stuff. You know what? How are you going to? How much business are you going to increase by that? What's the offsetting cost?
But if you make it as part of who you are, and we're all online and we all have some sort of digital footprint as an individual, where the benefit comes in for a small business that I think is that, one, most small businesses are following the path what Randy was just talking about. So if we're trying to differentiate, if we're trying to stand out, if we're trying to show people that we're doing something fun and different, and we're not necessarily looking for that drive-by traffic, but we're trying just to establish our presence online, because maybe when somebody is looking, I might come up in the search results for the next county over, and that would be really interesting. But why would that happen? And there has to be something cool. So if I'm an electrician, or if I'm a hardware store, I might want to have a video of, I mean, this is kind of goofy, but how not to plug in your surge protector, or how do you know when your surge protector is dead, or how do you know, how often should you replace those? And I think that there is value in having those little tidbits in a world where we're less hands-on, we're more disposable in general overall with our stuff. I actually think information like that is helpful, and it helps people get to have some information. And if nothing else, it might not help the local business from the drive-by piece, but it sure does help the digital footprint of a business for not a lot of extra work, because I'm going to like doing it anyway as the business owner. If I don't like doing it,
I don't disagree with what you're saying, Jess. I just think that you're swimming in a large ocean of sharks that will, I mean, you know, differentiate yourself or die, yeah, but you know, it's not differentiation that's going to save you. It's having a good product and delivering and building a loyalty, right? Because you're not going to compete against Lowe's, and you're not going to compete against Walmart. You'll never do that. So you want to stay within your geographical area and understand. Now, if you're very successful and you're able to franchise and go out, then you know you got money to play with. But you know, you just got to be and it goes back to me. There is no easy way to do business. If it is, we'd all be rich, and we're not. So you know, it's just hard work, and every now and then you hit on something that takes you to a point that you go, wow, how did I get here? You know, and that's what I think everybody thinks. This digital world now, it's so easy to make money, and it's no different than, you know, before we had that. It just gives you an opportunity for that local store to talk to the people in Arkansas or something.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I just like to swing back to the point about getting people to talk about you, and I'm thinking of that, and you know, of the local business, because I think now we're talking about local businesses, and I think unless you're in like a one-street town, you're going to have competition, and what differentiates you in terms of that competition. I think Jess makes a really good argument for Google Plus local pages, you know, because that's the place where you'll be found. You show up on the knowledge graph, you're right there on the right-hand side of the search results. People can call you there, they can leave a comment, they can ask you questions, and then go to your site. That's important. But I know in terms of in real life, I patronize our local boutique places. I go to our pastry shop, I go to our butcher shop, I go to whatever, because I've got to know those people, and when I walk in, they smile and they say hi, Ray, you know, and that if we can do that online, maybe that's what makes this, you know, the whole social marketing thing different.
Okay, well,
thanks for saving me, Scott. Okay.
You know, an underlying theme that might be a good topic for a future show is the purpose for search and online, because there's churn, so you're trying to attract new customers, and then there's maintenance. You've already got the customer, he or she already knows you, then you use your online presence to nurture that relationship, and those are two different relationships and maybe two different approaches that need to be taken.
Okay.
Yeah, and Jerry put a comment about, you know, if his local person is talking, he relates it back to that's old word of mouth marketing. I might take a little different approach to word of mouth marketing in that, but it is true. I mean, going back to my original thing, a dentist, you put up a thing, you say, I want to find a dentist in Athens, Georgia, and these sites pop up. So you go look at them, and I guarantee you, some of the dentists have a very progressive, modern-looking, slick-looking website. They have helpful videos that, you know, try to calm your nerves about everything, and then there's other dentists that are probably as astute as the other guy, but they haven't spent as much time building up their brand. So when I'm searching, that does help me. I mean, I make a judgment on that when I look locally, and I say, okay, here's one. This guy's done a little bit of extra stuff. Looks pretty modern. He's got to be cutting edge. So it gives some credence to that.
So Randy, if you hadn't had a personal recommendation or referral to a dentist, like for me, I would probably not go to a dentist unless I can ask someone's, you know, opinion, because it's a paranoid thing. But if you didn't have that, so all things being equal, and you find those results for dentists, you're saying the one that seems more progressive would be.
Well, I did that. I did exactly that in the community I live in now. That's how I found the dentist that I'm using. And I went in there, and like anybody else, I have a fear of dentistry. I don't want that. I've been afraid of it all my life. So I wanted, I wanted a dentist that has all the modern stuff that stresses that he is going to make my life stress-free when I'm in his office. That's what I was looking for. And I found a dentist in the community. That was his approach. We are going to do, and you know what? I didn't have a recommendation, but I made it online, researched it, and went to him. The most if you can say a dentist experience was pleasant, the most pleasant. And I've spent a lot of money with him over the last several years fixing some teeth. I've never had an uncomfortable situation sitting in a chair either, but with hygienist or him.
That's great. I think I would look out for a dentist that tells a lot of jokes on the website that maybe mean that he's generous with his laughing gas. Mine is generous with he can give you all you want. He'll give you any sedation you want. If that's what you want, he's going to give it to you.
That's great. Well, and that makes a really good point. Is he's getting people into his office. So his website and his digital strategy, his footprint, made it so you picked up the phone and felt comfortable enough to go there. And he's delivering when you get there. And online, we can do the same thing. What is it that, whatever our value is, fun, memorable, delightful, outrageous, whatever fits our brand motif, then if they are interested enough to come to our website better do its job. And I actually think in this world of social, we do forget our website a little bit in that placement, and that actually affects how we show up online too. Because if people come and they don't know what to do when they get to your website and they click back, you're really cool, they may come back and see you again, but that doesn't help your search placement because they're not staying and they're not doing anything.
I'm so happy you brought that up and just before the bell rang, because that's a very, very important point. And Google places a lot of importance on the quality of your website. This has been like super, super cool conversation. I encourage everybody that's watching, both live and later in replay, to check out the comments on the event page because our illustrious G+ Lunch Bunch left some amazing takeaways there. So thank you all very much again. I really appreciate this. It was so fun being back. And join us next Tuesday for another Lunch Bunch when we'll have Mark Traphagen, and we're going to be talking about authorship. So see you next Tuesday. Take care. Bye-bye.